Wait a minute. This isn't my world. Disappointed!
There weren't even 6,000 people in the stadium. It was totally empty, and yet they were raining boos on Carson Wentz.
So sad that some fans could barely keep it together.
What up, Philadelphia and all the Eagles fans around the world? What's good? It's another episode of Scotty Talks Philly Sports. Yes, I know, man. What the hell happened against LA, man? 37 goddamn points. Man, I'm flabbergasted. I thought our defense was going to be better than this. Jesus. That defensive line is a no-show. I'm wondering what's going on. We get no pressure on the quarterback. We don't draw up any blitzes. I don't know what Jim Schwartz is doing. Our linebackers are terrible. Everybody in the secondary outside of Darius Slay, they're replaceable. I mean, these guys are not playing, like what we expected coming into this season. And if it continues, you will continue to see the same results. Obviously, Carson Wentz, not the elite quarterback that we know and love. I mean, where did this guy go? I mean, this guy ended the season last year on a hot streak, before getting knocked out of that playoff game. But, seems like the pressure is mounting up on Wentz's shoulders, Doug Peterson's shoulders, per usual. The Jalen Hurts pick did not help. But that's enough of giving the overview of the game. I mean, you guys watched it. I know it was painful. We don't even need to, talk too much over it right now. I will be joined by a very special guest, one of my favorite, Philly sports guys, my good buddy David Esser, my editor over at Section 215 of Fansided, also a host of the Bullpen Blues on PSN, Philly Sports Network Radio. Be sure to check that out. Also, of course, remember to like and subscribe to the video. Still fighting for that 125 subscriber mark so I can give out this Darius Slay jersey via Fanatics.com. Darius Slay's been nothing but a CB1 so far. He has not been disappointment. And I'll take as many Darius Slay jerseys as I can get. So go ahead, subscribe to the channel. I'll go ahead and get you entered in that drawing once we hit 125. But, check out this cool episode with my man David. We got to break down the Rams loss and, kind of just where the Eagles are, at this stage in the season, as well as moving forward. What's the future look like for this team? There's not a lot of stars on this team, but we'll get into that. We'll dig into that. Thank you guys for checking out the podcast, and stay tuned. All right. I want to welcome a very special guest to Scotty Talks Philly Sports for the first time. I've been waiting a long time to get him on the show. My editor from over at Section 215 of Fansided.com, David Esser. So he also hosts his own podcast on Philly Sports Network Radio called Bullpen Blues. If you want to go ahead and let everybody know what's going on with that over there with you and KD.
Yeah, Scotty, first of all, thanks so much for having me on the show. It's been a minute since we reconnected. Super excited. The podcast is going great. You're doing a ton of great work over here. But yeah, Bullpen Blues. So it's a Phillies podcast over at Philly Sports Network, PSN Radio. We're talking all things Phillies. We normally get out 2 to 3 episodes a week. I mean, hey, Phillies are right in the middle of a playoff hunt right now. So if you're not tuned into the Phils right now, pop on over. We'll get you hooked up. Other than that, Scotty, again, I'm super pumped to be on the show today.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you, man. And that podcast is off to a great start, man, between you and KD. It's great baseball talk and, keeping me up to date with the Phillies because, as soon as the Eagles popped up, my focus goes directly to them. So you guys are keeping me on track over there. We're just going to dive into some, quick Eagles talk. It was a disgusting loss to the Rams. I mean, it's hard to even pinpoint exactly where all the blame should go. It goes in so many directions. But we can dive right in. I just wanted to get your takes. What are your main things that went wrong yesterday? Then there's a lot of them. So
Yeah, all right. So there's definitely a lot that went wrong. Obviously, a lot of people are pointing to Carson Wentz, pointing to Doug Peterson. Sean McVay outcoached Jim Schwartz. Actually, I want to start first with the defense because I felt the biggest disappointment. This is a defense that has historically fared very well against Sean McVay's offense. This is a defense that has a lot of money invested into it. And for the second straight week, in my opinion, they no-showed. You have Javon Hargrave coming back. You have Derek Barnett coming back. You have all these guys. You have Nickel Roby-Coleman going up against his former team. And they didn't come to play. I mean, they spotted the Rams 21 points, essentially. 0 sacks for Fletcher Cox again. 0 sacks for Javon Hargrave. Javon Hargrave didn't even record a statistic, not even a tackle.
Yeah, I didn't even notice him.
Derek Barnett, 0 sacks. Malik Jackson, 0 sacks. Nickel Roby-Coleman got torched. Avonte Maddox got torched. Obviously, the linebackers, whatever with the linebackers, we know they suck. That's how they built this roster. They put all their money and all their investment into that defensive line, and they were nowhere to be found. They almost put up 200 rushing yards on the Eagles, almost 200. So, yeah, a lot of things went wrong. Obviously, Wentz had an awful game. The receivers weren't great. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside was a no-show. Doug Peterson, I thought, was miserable. But to me, I got to look first at that defense because that's where most of the money's at right now. And they just didn't show up. They were nowhere to be found.
Yeah, and to your point, the defense, especially the run defense, has been our calling card for the last, 2-3 years. After the Super Bowl run, we at least had a good run defense. And, we would give up some yards in the passing game, but we would bend but not break. But now, they just broke it open. After that Miles Sanders fumble yesterday, it was all downhill. And then, of course, we always find a way to pick ourselves back up. But then, of course, Carson throws that miserable interception into double coverage. I don't have that much faith in J-Joel for me to understand why he made that throw. So I thought that was terrible. But, yeah, the defense, there's not much you can do when somebody's hanging 37 on you. You're going to have to pass a lot. We just couldn't get stops down the stretch. I know we talked a little bit last week about what the Eagles needed to do on offense. But it seemed like the Rams took all of your, with the misdirections, the screens. Their offense looks exactly like what our offense should look like.
Yeah, that's a really good point. They were play action, bootlegs, misdirections. They did everything that the Eagles were supposed to do. And again, it's frustrating that the Eagles can't be that creative because they actually have the personnel to do it. You can run Jalen Reagor on the sweeps. You can run John Hightower on the fake end arounds. You got Jalen Hurts out there. Whatever. The creativity personnel is there, and they're not utilizing it. But again, linking back to the defense, and I want to make a point here because I wrote an article after week 1 about Fletcher Cox. I got a lot of pushback for that article, and I essentially said, is it time we start worrying about him? Is it time we start worrying about Brandon Graham? Is it time we start worrying about a Malik Jackson or a Derek Barnett or these guys who were once, crucial pieces to a Super Bowl team? In just all reality, they haven't been very good recently. Yeah. The defense wasn't great last year. They look miserable this season. At what point do we look at a team and you're like, all right, Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson just hung 200 yards on you. Those aren't elite running backs. And we get it. The linebackers suck. Can't really point too many fingers at the secondary anymore. You got Darius Slay. Where's the disconnect? Is it Jim Schwartz? Is it Doug Peterson? Is it Howie Roseman? Is it the physical players themselves? Because, 37 points for as bad as Wentz played, 37 points is way, way too many points in a single. You're not going to win giving up 37.
No. And to your point, Fletcher Cox, I was high on him coming into the season. I thought, with all the pieces around him finally, he could have, one of those monumental statistical years where he could really get off, and nothing. Literally nothing. I think he has 5 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss. He had one good TFL during the Rams game where he broke through immediately. But other than that, yeah. And so I'm just with Fletcher Cox, I saw him a specific point in the game yesterday where I saw him getting stood up by one offensive lineman. And when I saw that, I was just amazed because that's not Fletcher Cox. Fletcher Cox, the old Fletcher Cox, is a guy that demands a double team, similar to Aaron Donald. Which kudos to that offensive line. I do want to shout them out because they did handle Aaron Donald very well. That game plan was at least set up right to where he wasn't tormenting Carson Wentz. But Yeah, that defensive line, like you said, there's just a ton of money in there. I mean, you look at even guys like Barnett. He's not panning out. I mean, it's not working out. Whether it's him not on the field, due to health concerns, or just his play because he wasn't noticeable yesterday. I mean, you at least had Brandon Graham, get a sack yesterday. He showed up a little bit, but one tackle, you know what I mean? One tackle for loss.
And
one
even
sack,
then, that was a coverage sack. It was a coverage sack.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably should have thrown the ball away. But yeah, I mean, like with Barnett, like if we're being real, he's just not very good.
Yeah.
And it was something we talked about in the offseason, like how many like truly good players are on that defense right now. And it sounds melodramatic and like, oh, the sky's falling and like whatever. Like we're 2 games in, we're 0-2. 11% of teams who start 0-2 actually go on to make the playoffs. It's okay to hit the panic button a little bit. Yeah. But you look at the defense, you even look at some, like how many like truly elite players are on this roster right now. And for me going into the season, I was like, there's not many. So I'm not super surprised that we're having these struggles so early on.
Because, I mean, if you go into the season thinking about elite players, you're probably going to count Fletcher Cox in there, and he's been nothing close to elite. So if you look at that defense, who are they? What, Darius Slay and Fletcher Cox? That's it. You know what I mean?
Brandon Graham, too. I mean, Brandon Graham, he's set to make $18 million next season. He's not giving you $18 million worth of production.
No.
I don't want to harp too much on the defense. Like, your 2 highest paid players are Carson Wentz and Fletcher Cox, and both of them completely horrible to start the season. That's why they're 0-2. But, like, it does go both ways in the sense that, like, Carson Wentz, you're the highest paid player on offense. You need to create. He's not creating. Fletcher Cox, you're the highest paid player on defense. You need to create. You're not creating. That's why we're 0-2. Like, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, we had Jared Goff out there looking like an all-pro. You know what I mean? Yeah. Dan Marino, man. I mean, it was insane. Do you think with Will Parks coming back hopefully soon, do you think that could make a difference, or is that just another, I know he's not like a star, but he is a very versatile piece. I don't know if all the holes that I saw yesterday, there's not one person that can, kind of fill in those holes. But do you think that could help at all?
Yeah, and I think it will. Will Parks is a really versatile player. He played a big role in training camp from everything I saw and everything I read, everything I heard. Like, he was kind of their Malcolm Jenkins replacement in a sense because, like, Jalen Mills, as much as he was hyped up, you can tell he's not very good.
Yeah.
So I do think Will Parks, he comes in, he makes an impact. My kind of problem, and we were touching on this before, is Will Parks is on a 1-year deal. Jalen Mills is on a 1-year deal. Nickel Roby-Coleman's on a 1-year deal. Malik Jackson's likely off this team next season. Fletcher Cox, he might be off this team. Derek Barnett's probably off this team next season. So, like, even if Will Parks comes in and has the best 13 games of his life, like, so what? Like, are they really going to extend him after letting Malcolm walk? Probably not. Yeah. So, like, I think he comes in. I think you can get Duke Riley off the field a little bit. You can hopefully get Nate Gary out of coverage a little bit. But the long-term effects of someone like Will Parks coming back are only so big.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. I mean, nothing's going to fix what happened yesterday. I mean, we have no linebackers, and it was completely, blown. It was completely put on shelf yesterday. Our defense looked confused. I mean, I would see these wide receiver runs coming, the slot handoff. I just saw them coming consecutively. They just kept running the same plays, and then just using motion, confusing the defense. Nate Geary was caught looking so many times where he's trying to catch up to the tight end. It was amazing, honestly, because you finally got to see Sean McVay. Everybody that hypes up Sean McVay, it was finally put on display against Philly. I wasn't truly a believer. Honestly, I know he's a great coach, but I just wasn't so sure that he could be a better coach than Doug Peterson, which I'm not saying that he totally is, but, I mean, yesterday he definitely
he outcoached him yesterday.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, McVay, I was never a believer myself. I thought he kind of coached like a coward at times.
Yeah.
He was on his game. Like, he came out, he had a game plan. They executed. Everybody was locked in. Everybody knew where they were supposed to be, and it was just easy points. They just walked down the field, easy points.
Yeah. So what, as far as like the game yesterday, what do you think actually went right? There wasn't many positives, but there were some, I believe, between that offensive line, Miles Sanders. What did you actually like that you saw yesterday?
Yeah. So I actually, once we were down 21-3, I was able to kind of like pull myself away from the game and be like, all right, let's watch specific players. Let's see who's playing well, who's playing worse compared to last week. Let me analyze this game. And I came away with 3 points, and you touched on 2 of them. the offensive line was great. Like, the offensive line was really, really good. I thought Nate Herbig in particular was great for the second week in a row. Like, he was good against Washington. He graded out as their highest pass blocker. On the one Miles Sanders touchdown run, it was literally Nate Herbig picking up the defensive tackle and moving him back 5 feet. And I was like, all right, Nate, like, we can rely on that. I mean, he's huge. He's 6'4", almost 340 pounds. The dude is a mountain of a human out there. So I'm excited with him because Jason Kelce's going to retire eventually. You likely move Seumalo over to center, so you need a guard. And right now, I think Nate Herbig's the guy. So I was really excited with what I saw with him. On that same note, Miles Sanders was great. Pretend the fumble didn't happen for a second. Like, whatever. We're just going to erase that from our memory. He was really good. And then Darius Slay. I mean, it's 2 weeks in a row. Darius Slay has been as good as advertised. He doesn't get beat. He keeps people in front of him. He doesn't get beat on the long ball. Like, he's everything you could have asked for. Now, his surrounding corners gave him zero help. But Darius Slay, like, he's really, really good. Like, I'm very pleased with him so far.
Yeah, and that's a great point. Darius Slay, you don't notice that he's playing, which that's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
For a cornerback, number one cornerback. But yeah, I'm the same right there. The offensive line, amazing. Having Lane back obviously helps with depth and just the comfortability of Carson Wentz. I think he's more comfortable when Lane's playing. Obviously, like you said, Nate Herbig. That's actually a pretty good sign for the future. That something is actually working out. If hopefully it continues. Hopefully those 2 games weren't just fluke games and then he turns into a pile of crap. But at least somebody is panning out, one of the younger players. We also got to see Matt Pryor in there for a little bit. Jack Driscoll played a little bit as well, right?
He played like 2 snaps. He
2
came
snaps,
in
yeah. And then Jason Peters has looked pretty good so far as well over at left tackle. So the offensive line, I was just excited to, see that we just didn't totally fall apart again. 0 sacks, not many hurries on Carson Wentz. He played with a pretty clean pocket considering, Aaron Donald's on that defensive line as well as Brockers and a couple other guys. But yeah, Miles Sanders, obviously the fumble. It was hard for me to measure Miles Sanders' game because I'm trying not to hold that fumble against him. But in reality, it kind of set up, that initial drive for the Rams. So it kind of was a big deal, but, it's his first game back, and he more than made up for it, I believe. With 90, he had like 131 scrimmage yards, a touchdown. He was there for Wentz all day. So he definitely played his part. You definitely saw the bell cow type of feature back that they've been talking about all offseason. So that was exciting. And he actually looked 100%. He wasn't out there hobbling. He didn't come off, limping any. So that was good to see him out there, fully able. That was one of my big worries with him coming back. But yeah, and I also I just want to point out, TJ Edwards. I think we do got to get him a couple, some more looks on that defense. He's a big effort guy. He played well last season. He was able to get that nice strip fumble on the kick on the punt, and get us some life there. But I would just like us to try some different things. I mean, if Jerry isn't working, try some other guys. I know Jerry is considered our best coverage linebacker, but we got to try some different things. You drafted Davion Taylor. We got to, what's he doing? I don't get it.
Boy.
He's a water boy. Like, I don't get it. We got to try different things.
I agree, because again, in a perfect world, Nate, Gary, and Duke Riley aren't on the team next year because they're absolutely woeful in coverage and in the run game. Like, they're just not good at anything. It's like with TJ Edwards, he's not great in coverage. He struggles in the passing game. But also, like, have they tried him in coverage yet? Like, he only played on rundowns last season. He's only played on rundowns this season. So screw it. I'm throwing him out there next week against the Bengals tight end and saying, hey, do your best. If you're terrible at halftime, we'll yank you. We'll put Gary back in. But for the most part, see what you have. Because, again, he's someone that you can build forward with the future. You don't want to be building forward with Gary and Duke Riley. They're not good at football.
Exactly.
But if you can find something here with TJ, because you liked him enough to give him a spot on the team this season, I would definitely hope he gets more playing time moving forward.
Yeah. So he's just one of those guys, those young pieces you want to see us grow and develop. That's what we have to do at this point. Because we're semi in the middle of a rebuild. And, at the end of this season, we are going to be in a full-blown rebuild by the looks of it. To your point, bringing up the Bengals, I mean, I hope that this team is not sleeping on the Bengals. I hope they don't think of this as a gimme game. There's no such thing as a gimme game for the Eagles anymore. They've lost to the Washington football team. Yeah. They got blew out by the Rams. There are no gimme games. I mean, Joe Burrow could come out here and have the game of his life and beat us. It's possible. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
They have weapons on offense. They have Joe Mixon. They have Boyd. They have A.J. Green. I'm not sure. I saw Uzama got injured, the tight end, but
he did.
They got weapons out there, and Joe Burrow. And based off what I've seen so far, he looks like he's going to be pretty good. He's very poised. He doesn't get shook up, like a Jared Goff. Jared Goff got hit a couple times yesterday, and then you started seeing those balls hit the ground, throwing it in the dirt, stuff like that. That's not Joe Burrow. He'll come out, throw a pick, come down, score a touchdown again. He doesn't think twice about it. But obviously this is a game, hopefully you're believing. If you have any belief left in the Eagles, this is where they would turn it around. Get a bounce back game, get some rhythm going, some chemistry on offense. Bengals don't have a very good defense. You saw with the Browns. I know they have a bunch of star power, but they have not been world beaters. And they were able to get 30-plus points up on the Bengals. So we have to come out and look like a team that is serious, or we'll look like the team that we have, which is just a total disappointment. Not truly a shock to a lot of people, but I know people in Philadelphia were high on the Eagles this year. Counting, and that's my problem with being high on the Eagles is that we are always counting on the Cowboys to flounder out. You know what I mean? It's like, we'll be all right, but we just need the Cowboys to be worse, where that's not a winning organization, but that's what we've been living off of, for the past couple of years is, can we beat the Cowboys? Cowboys doesn't win you a Super Bowl. Cowboys doesn't put you in contending. You know what I mean? So I just think that's the wrong way of looking at things going forward. It's cool, last year getting that division title with those lack of weapons around Wentz. He finished out the season great. But this season with Wentz, it's like, which this will kind of dive into the next segment, which I was just going to ask, a few of your disappointments, through the first two games. Obviously, Carson Wentz, man. I mean, I'm one of his biggest defenders. I truly believe he is a good quarterback. He has elite talent when he puts it all together. But it's hard to not call this a regression so far. I mean, this is the worst he's looked, I think, since his rookie year. I mean, 4 interceptions through 2 games. That's not Carson Wentz. I mean, he's only had 7 interceptions the last 3 seasons, total in each season. So I'm worried, that he's getting mentally messed up. I'm worried that he doesn't have a coaching staff that can truly fix the issues, because these are the same issues that we were seeing. The pocket awareness, the overthrows. I mean, and then just the reads. Forcing that ball to Arcega-Whiteside is not. That's not a winning play. You know what I mean? That's not something that I would trust. And I don't know if that's just him too confident in himself, too confident in his teammates. But at that point in the game, it got to a certain point after Carson threw that interception where I'm kind of just more comfortable running the ball, honestly. Just give the ball to Miles and see what we get out of that. That's where I was at, because I was just unsure of the decisions that Carson Wentz was making yesterday.
So here's my thing with Carson Wentz, because you mentioned regression. I don't think he's regressed. Entering into the season, I had him as the 5th best quarterback in the NFL. And I think from a pure talent standpoint, I still think he's there. Obviously, right now, he would not be the 5th quarterback I would take, but I still think he's there. I think the biggest problem with Carson Wentz right now, after watching 2 straight games, is that he's pushing. He's pushing really, really hard. Yeah. I think there's 2 reasons. Number 1, he knows the pressure that's around him. Okay, look. It was a stupid decision to draft Jalen Hurts. It was an even stupider decision to dress him 1 week after Carson Wentz struggles. Carson Wentz is a human being. Would you prefer he never gets upset about having a good backup? Sure, but Tom Brady got real upset when Jimmy G was behind him. He got so upset that they traded Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, this is a human emotion to have, where Carson Wentz knows he hasn't finished a full season in a while. The cheap shot wasn't his fault last year, but he knows the stigma behind him. He knows that Howie Roseman went and drafted a quarterback. And before you know it, he's now being put in a situation where he's got all these rookie weapons around him, a meh offensive line, playing a good Rams team in week 2 after a disappointing week 1 performance. He's pushing really, really hard. And that's where you see the inaccurate throws, the bombs into double coverages, not taking sacks when he should just throw the ball away. He's pushing really, really hard. And that kind of bleeds into the second point where I think the people around him don't have his best interest in mind. I think Doug Peterson by himself is a really good coach. I don't think Doug Peterson is all in on Carson Wentz. I think Howie Roseman by himself is a pretty good general manager. He's proven he's not all in on Carson Wentz by drafting Jalen Hurts. So you have the two most important people in front of Carson Wentz not fully in on Carson Wentz. So now you just have this messy situation where he's pushing, he's feeling all this pressure, and the people around him are kind of like, we're not so sure about you, buddy. And it's leading to a lot of careless mistakes.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the perfect description of what you're seeing from Carson. Obviously, we know that he can perform, at an elite level. We've seen it, countless times over the last, 4 seasons. And to your point, Carson goes out, wins that division last year, and then we draft a quarterback in the second round. That doesn't. If I'm Carson Wentz, that does not make sense to me. You know what I mean? I'm calling Howie as soon as you make that pick. I didn't have anybody to throw to. The last, half of the season, I had literally nobody to throw to besides, 4th-string guys from the practice squad, and you guys are drafting a quarterback, and then making him run, which, mind you, I did like the Jalen Hurts plays. I thought that they were great decoy plays, and they did net positive yards. But, as Carson Wentz, it's like, do you want to run those plays, like these gadget plays, if you feel that you're an elite-level quarterback? He feels like he should be counted on. So, when we're just doing that gimmicky type of stuff, I feel like it just discredits Carson Wentz and what he's able to do. And I agree with you. I think he's pushing it. I mean, you saw it a couple times where he just tries to thread the needle, thinks he can fit a ball. It's like that classic, Brett Favre, just slinging it, just trying to make something happen. And that's what's turning into a lot of these interceptions, man. I think ultimately, Carson can get it together. These guys just got to gather around him and, let him know that he is their leader. He needs to also step up himself, be more vocal, and hold these guys accountable. I mean, guys dropping passes, that can't happen. But if you're sitting there overthrowing them, then they're going to look at you, well, stop overthrowing me. So they got to come together, find that equal ground. And I did like the way they got Jalen Reagor the ball in some more open space type of opportunities this weekend. I think they should continue, to get him more involved in that offense. I like what I see from him. He gets popped, he gets right back up. He came back really quick from that shoulder injury. I mean, he just seems like a tough guy, a tough kid, and I think he could be something special. It's just, it's similar to like an Aguilar and a couple of these other guys. It's like, are we going to use him right? You know what I mean? Or are we going to still keep trying with guys like JJ, who are, like you said, he's a scratch. Like what did he do yesterday other than cause an interception? I mean, I don't understand what he's on the field for. I'd rather have a guy like John Hightower out there running that route. Like there's younger, faster guys, more skilled guys that I would rather see on the field than him. And I just, you look at it, and we watched the Seattle game last night on primetime. DK Metcalf. It's just a shame that we overthought the process. You know what I mean? Everybody would have picked DK Metcalf over JJ Arcega-Whiteside. That's like Howie's thing is he always feels like he's the smartest guy in the room. He thinks he's always, one step ahead. And I think it's costed us a couple times now, detrimentally. The Jalen Hurts thing, like what – a quarterback factory? We can't even get our starting quarterback to perform at an elite level, let alone, a second string guy that was not even supposed to be drafted in the second round.
Well, and I think it's the 5th major decision Howie has made in the last 2 seasons that's really set this team backwards. I thought the Andre Dillard pick, it looked great when it first happened. It looks kind of like a disaster at the moment. He's not really going to debut until his 3rd season. That's tough. Or Arcega-Whiteside pick, whatever. He's a complete bust. Then you come into this year, the Jalen Hurts pick. What are we doing? The Davion Taylor pick. What are we doing? And then I thought, and people aren't going to like this, I thought the Javon Hargrave signing made very little sense at the time. I thought it was an overcorrection. I thought they were so desperate for defensive tackle depth that they felt, paying $40 million for a defensive tackle when you don't have a backup running back, you don't have a starting linebacker, you don't have a legit second corner, you don't have an elite edge rusher on the outside. Like, there was a lot of holes in how we threw $40 million at a nose tackle. We saw what the result was yesterday against the Rams. The Rams didn't care about our defensive line. They just threw out our linebackers. So I think it's the fifth, kind of really yikes decision from Howie Roseman recently that is not only hurting Carson Wentz and then causing Carson Wentz to press. Because something we didn't even talk about was the Zach Ertz situation. They're forcing Carson Wentz, his best friend, out of the building. Like, they're forcing him out. He's going to be gone at the end of the year. That's we know it's almost like written in stone that this is his last year as a Philadelphia Eagle. That's not sitting well with Wentz either. So now, again, you have a quarterback who's pressing. All the roster moves around him make very little sense and are only making his life more difficult. And now you're 0-2, and it's not hard to connect the dots as to, why everything's happening the way it's happening.
Yeah, exactly. And, to your point about the Zach Ertz thing, I mean, it's honestly a shame. I get the business side of it. I do. And I obviously I see Goddard's progression this season. I mean, he looks like a stud. And to that point, I did see him getting guarded by Jalen Ramsey a few times yesterday, which I thought that was pretty interesting that they would, take their number one, highest paid corner in the league and put him on our tight end too, which maybe Goddard is our tight end one now. Who knows what's going on?
He's our wide receiver one at the moment.
Right. Exactly. So, with that Ertz situation, man, you just kind of seeing him get phased out. He's not the number one option on a lot of plays anymore. It's very spread out when you see it. You never see like an Ertz takeover like you saw last season, where he just strings off a couple receptions in one drive. You know what I mean? So you can see they're trying to get the wide receivers more involved. They're getting Goddard more involved, more setup plays for Goddard. I haven't even seen, a screen ran for Zach Ertz. We used to run, little misdirection screens for Ertz. None of that. I mean, stuff to get him going, you know what I mean? Get him involved, get that chemistry flowing. And it's just a shame because you have to wonder behind all of this, the plays that are drawn up to go to J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, are these just, PR plays for Howie, to make, get my guys some touches, you know what I mean? Is he just stressing this to the coaching staff? Is this, starting down, and maybe that's all conspiracy, maybe not.
I actually don't think it's conspiracy at all.
I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, why else would we force it to that guy?
The very first end zone play we ran in 2020 was a design slant for J.J. Arcega-Whiteside across the middle. Now, granted, he was covered because he can't get open, so Wentz threw it behind him to Zach Ertz.
Right.
That's not by mistake. Why the heck would J.J. Arcega-Whiteside be your very first end zone target of the entire season if it wasn't to be a PR move where Howie can say, look, hey, he's breaking out, like he's here, like good training camp, touchdown. Like, no, it is designed.
Yeah.
And Doug got all upset in the press conference this morning about Wentz targeting Arcega-Whiteside. I'm like, I'm sure people are telling him to throw some jump balls to Arcega-Whiteside. Like, it wasn't a great throw, but, like, if he can't make the play, why is he on the field?
It's very funny, man. It's very funny, and that's not the way to do business, man.
No.
It's not a good look moving forward, as far as Howie and just some of the things that have come out of the locker room, the last couple seasons with Malcolm, even Scandrick. I know we don't believe it much that Scandrick says, but, I mean, he's just another guy that left that team and had something bad to say about the locker room and about Howie Roseman. So, I mean, there's just not a lot of positivity flowing around this team right now. And I thought it was crazy, coming into the season against Washington, who's coming off an off season of just complete turmoil. And it's almost like we, with our returning head coach, our returning, elite quarterback, we thought we would have control of the division, maybe compete with Dallas, but we're looking like one of the worst teams. I know the Giants just lost Saquon, but we are looking like one of the worst teams in the division, and it's just crazy to think about. So we already touched on a couple of the disappointments. Obviously, the defensive line, we already talked about how much money is into that line. I also think, the fact that our defense just is not opportunistic. We don't get turnovers.
Zero turnovers outside of the special teams fumble.
And I thought, that new improved secondary mixed with that defensive line that could bring pressure, I thought we would, be a turnover machine. None of that, against some not the greatest offenses in the NFL. I mean, you look at that Washington football team, that is a horrid offense. I mean,
they got crushed by Arizona. They're not good.
And you got, Terry McLaurin's getting locked up by Darius Slay. So what is the problem? I mean, it's disappointing to say the least. The run defense is now lacking. So that's definitely a big disappointment. We'll jump into surprises, and then I'll get you out of here. Obviously, my biggest surprise, it wasn't necessarily a surprise because I was preaching it all offseason. Dallas Goedert's ready. He's ready to be, used to his full capabilities. He's getting a lot of targets. He leads the team in targets. He's their leading receiver in general. Like you said, he's wide receiver 1 right now. And that's just something that's the one thing that is, really sticking out to me right now. We got a couple young pieces that are looking all right on the offensive line. That's kind of exciting. You just hope that they can keep that up. But Dallas Goedert is the one guy that is just really sticking out, and that's not doing any justice for Zach Ertz's situation either. So
no, and you were really on that hype. Like, you were one of the first people I felt this offseason who was very vocal in saying Dallas Goedert's a tight end 1. Most people were high on Dallas Goedert. It's not hard to watch him and tell he's extremely gifted.
Right.
But you were really one of the first people to say, no. Like, he's top 5 material. And he's looked that part through 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a freak athlete. He's a good route runner, great blocker. Like, he's really good. He's one of the few guys on offense, him and Miles Sanders and Jalen Reagor, that you can be really excited about going forward because he's good.
Yeah. What about you? Has anything caught your eye? Anything good? Just surprisingly good?
Yeah, so I have a lot of bad surprises, but we'll try to keep it positive to end out the podcast. So my biggest one, and I talked on it earlier, was Nate Herbig. Like, I think he's actually a piece to this team moving forward. It's only through 2 games, but that's all I have to watch of him at the moment. Yeah. Like, he looks like a guy. Like, he looks like a guy who's bought into Jeff Stoutland's offensive line philosophies. Jeff Stoutland's a really good offensive line coach. He's developed some, Big V's his big success story, and he kind of missed with Jordan Mailata, and Matt Pryor doesn't look as good as we all thought. But I think Nate Herbig is going to be his next big success story because he has the physical attributes. If you can get him a little bit better in pass protection, the dude is a mammoth on runs up the middle. Like, he just eats up space. Like, Aaron Donald's a freak, and Nate Herbig made Aaron Donald look small. Right. So, like, I'm very in on this kid. I'm excited to watch another 14 games of him because I think he'll be a player moving forward.
Yeah, and to your point, that's great for the offensive line. As we mentioned, we have missed on so many draft picks on that offensive line. So if we could get a guy like Herbig, who we didn't really expect much from, to pan out somewhat, just to be a serviceable starter would be great, especially for our salary cap situation, everything moving forward. We need guys like that to pan out. We will close the episode out. Just one quick question. We've talked about it briefly, but how close are the Eagles to being the Philadelphia 76ers as far as everything, surrounding the team, the fit, surrounding your stars with the right talent? How close are we to that turning point?
Okay, so we've been texting about this throughout the week. And Scotty, I got bad news. My take has evolved. I actually think the Sixers are in a better situation.
Oh my God.
And like people are going to hate that. I think the Sixers are in a better situation. Okay, here's the thing. Look, Sixers front office is wildly dysfunctional. I think the Eagles front office is trending in that direction where some guys are going to get fired at the end of the season. Here's my thing with the Sixers. They have 2 legitimate top 20 players in the NBA. I mean, Ben Simmons just made All-NBA third team. That puts him top 15. Joel Embiid has made All-NBA second teams in the past. They have 2 legitimate top 20 players. As long as they have those 2 guys, they will always be in the mix to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
The Eagles at the moment, I don't think they have 2 top 20 players at all. I thought Carson Wentz was in that discussion. It's hard to see it right now. Eagles don't have 2 top 20 players in the NFL. So as horrible as the Sixers have been managed, they're still going to be in the playoffs every single season as long as they have those 2. Whereas the Eagles, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, who's the super exciting, bright, young Ben Simmons-esque star that the Eagles have? Then he's not there. So that's kind of, I know it's like, maybe a little over dramatic. We're only
No, I mean it's more eye opening than anything. I mean, when you put it that way, I mean, I just think about the Eagles and all the pieces that they've missed on. We don't have any star wide receivers. You pray that Jalen Reagor can turn into that. You pray on it, but it's not promised. I mean, nothing is promised at this point with as far as who we draft. The offensive line, there's no studs that we drafted. All of them have came through. I mean, we drafted Lane Johnson. That was like, 9, 10 years ago.
Long time ago. These
so,
guys
I
are about to
mean,
retire.
Exactly. So, you look at other guys that we brought in, like Jason Peters. He was a free agent when we brought him in. Obviously, we've had him for a while. Brandon Brooks.
Was a big one, yeah.
Yeah, but we just miss on a lot of guys. You look around the league, these elite defenses, they all have premier pass rushers. Guys that you are scared of when you come to play them. And I feel like our line, it used to be Fletcher Cox, but he's not that guy anymore. And, I mean, when you talk to even opposing, analysts, of teams and of their teams, they're not scared of Fletcher Cox. They don't come in, talking about Fletcher Cox like, oh, we got to control Fletcher. They're not worried about our defensive line, as weird as that is. But
a scary exercise I did was who on the defense is the next young star on the let's assume we trade Fletcher Cox this offseason, which probably won't happen. Let's assume who's the next man up? Who's the young blossoming star on the defensive side of the ball? There's nobody there.
And if you are hoping, I know there's a lot of people that are really high on Javon Hargrave. That's another free agent signing. That's not our drafted player. We didn't develop him.
He has to be good because he's making
exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, to your point, Josh Sweat, everybody's loving him right now, but he's not taking over the NFL. I mean, we don't have any guys like that. And to your point, we're lacking star power. We're going to trade away Ertz, or whatever we do with Ertz. That's one of our stars. So who are we replacing him? Dallas Goedert, he could blossom into that tight end one, a very good tight end, top 5 potential, I believe. Just by his abilities. But, that's the one star you're hanging your hat on, you know what I mean? And you're getting rid of the other star. So it's not looking good. I mean, if we flounder out this season, then we're going to be in hell. I mean, because these players that we have, if they don't turn up and actually produce, we're not going to be able to get rid of them. We're not going to be able to trade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're losing value on all of these guys because it's getting to the point where if Fletcher Cox doesn't show up with this defensive line, who's going to want to trade for that contract? You know what I mean? Who wants that? I mean, unless obviously there's contenders out there, but you're going to get little in return for him. I mean, you're not going to get much on that contract when they're just using him as a plug-in piece. You know what I mean? So
you're not getting a first-round pick back for him at this
exactly.
stage.
And it's just a very bleak. You're wondering about Carson Wentz now. You're wondering what the Eagles are thinking about Carson Wentz. You're wondering, the Jalen Hurts. It's a lot of ridiculous stuff.
It was a mouthful.
And it is, man. And I thought the Sixers were in a terrible spot, but they get some shooters in there, and maybe that they're looking all right if they can just get some shooters around Ben and Joel. So. That's not impossible, but what the Eagles are looking at is borderline impossible. You can't just create stars overnight. It doesn't happen. And these drafts have cost us, man. It's just such a depressing.
Hey, the good news is if we bottom out and we get a top 10 pick, maybe we get Micah Parsons, then everything will be okay. It'll be okay.
And it's sad that we're thinking about top 10 picks, but I mean, if this season goes the wrong way, man, it could turn into that, surprisingly or not. It could turn into that. So it'll be interesting to see. I hope it doesn't turn out like that. I hope we turn this thing around.
A lot of football left. We still got
schedule's
time.
Tough, so we will see. Real quick, we'll get you out of here. What's your prediction for the Bengals-Eagles game?
So I've lost my last 2 predictions. I predicted the Eagles to win the last 2 games, so I'm gonna predict the Eagles to lose, but solely to jinx them because I low-key think they're going to win this one. So we'll say, 23-17 Bengals. Some mind games in there.
Gotcha. I like it, man. I like it. I'll definitely I gotta think about it. I'm not sure on my pick just yet. I really like Joe Burrow, man. So
Good,
I'm
good.
not
Excited.
I'm not sure about this one, but I think it is a game where we bounce back and we should win it. But we've been scheduled to, we've been favorites in our last two, so we see how those turned out. I want to thank you, man, for coming on the show. It's been awesome. Always a pleasure to talk sports with you, man. You got so much good knowledge going on there. Got a lot of hot takes that I'm picking up on, man. I'm feeling them. I'm seeing what you're seeing right now, and as bad as Eagles fans don't want to believe some of this stuff, it's happening. Change is happening, and a lot of fans don't like it. You know, I tell people, Ertz situation isn't good.
It's not looking good. Hey, Scotty,
you don't have to believe me, but yeah, I'll get you out of here, man.
Hey, I appreciate you. Yeah, appreciate you so much having me on. It's always a pleasure catching up and talking.
Of course, man. Of course. If you just want to plug in your podcast one more time, then we'll let you go.
Yeah, Bullpen Blues on PSN Radio. So if you just search up PSN Radio on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it'll be there. You can also get me on Twitter at @DavidEsser_. You can find that there. But again, hey, Scotty, you're doing great things with the show. Everybody, subscribe. Hit that button down below. It's really going in the right direction here.
All right, brother. Thank you for coming on. You have a good one, man. Philly, thanks for watching, listening. Hopefully we can turn it around, man.